Okay, we are live. We're going to let it breathe for a moment here while we connect Facebook, get this party started. Stoked to see everybody tonight. Hope everybody's doing great. You've had a great week. And we got some interesting stories to talk about tonight. We're going to get into it here shortly, but welcome in everybody to the Mile High Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. And with me is my fellow football priest. You know him, you love him, Zack Kelberman. Zack, the Denver Broncos did quite a lot this offseason, I think, to improve the roster, the free agent period, the draft, all that stuff. But ESPN, a little bit skeptical that they maybe didn't do enough in one particular area. And you had the article for us at MHH, dude. What's the saddle, the burr under their saddle?
Yeah, they were given an A- rating for their offseason grade. That was among the best in the NFL. Only 4 teams got an A- or higher. The Broncos were one of them. I think it was Seth Walder, the NFL analyst. He praised the Broncos for the rest of their moves, the Zade Barron, Evan Ingram, Greenlaw, Hufanga, all of that. But the move he disliked the most was not doing more at wide receiver. He thinks that they're just resting on Courtland Sutton and hoping for a breakout from Troy Franklin, Devon Vele, and Marvin Mims. And that's exactly what they are doing. And Walder ended the blurb by suggesting they go after Keenan Allen or Amari Cooper. And as I wrote, if they wanted to sign one of them by now, Chad, they would have done so. They've been on the open market for months. I think genuinely the Broncos like who they have at receiver. They want one or more of the young guys to break out, and they don't need another veteran in that group.
Once again, StreamYard giving us issues not connecting to Facebook. Man, if it's not one thing, it's another. Somebody asked me the other day when we were dealing with some issues, hey, what aren't there other I think it might have been Phil. Are there other alternatives to StreamYard? Man, I'm gonna have to start looking into that because having a bug every other show is like untenable, dude. It's untenable. So we're only connected to the MHH podcast Facebook page. Hopefully the Facebookers find us over there. So it won't connect to the main Mile High Huddle page. Sorry about that, guys. Don't know why. But I don't really feel like they're missing the boat, Zach. Like, first of all, you brought in Pat Bryant.
Right.
That dude is probably going to have a bigger impact, even year one, than most people think. But just the fact that you brought in Evan Ingram and what he's going to open up for everybody else, including these young, lesser heralded guys, that the Broncos are kind of counting on to develop further this year, like you mentioned, the Mims, the Veles, the Franklins, etc. Just the attention that Evan Ingram is going to take off of Courtland Sutton, like it's going to be, I think his influence alone, so long as he stays healthy, is going to be a net positive to this offense. And even though, yeah, he's a tight end, he's not a wide receiver per se, might as well be a receiver. He doesn't block.
And that's what Walder wrote, too, of how big of an influence he's going to have on Bo Nix, and that's why he likes the move so much. And all that's valid, but this is still one person's opinion, Chad. It's still a national media member's opinion. We all know that they're not as in tune with the Broncos as we are. And if you want proof of that, his favorite move, Seth Walder, it wasn't Ingram, it wasn't Hufanga, it wasn't Greenlaw, it wasn't Barron, it was re-signing DJ Jones. So just keep that in mind for context a little bit.
That was, I know, when I first read that, because I was about to actually write it up. I grabbed the link and I was going to hop in on our little DM that you and I communicate content on and go, yo, either you or I should grab this. And then I'd seen that you had already got to it and we're like, hey, dude, I'm going to grab this. So when I first saw that, though, the whole reason I'm bringing this up, I was like, can I take seriously now any other thing you say in this little blurb about the Broncos when the big move of that you like the most of the offseason, in an offseason, Zach, that I can only really compare to 2014 in terms of the big names that they went out and signed, you lost me a little bit in terms of the credibility factor. But let's see what's on Sam's mind. Sam Bam with a very generous super chat off the top rope.
Thank you.
And thank you, bro. Love you. Appreciate you. You are one of the great hashtag state of being members of our community, proven that, again, Broncos country, not a geographic location. It's a state of being, and the support this time of year especially, brother, trust. It's very, very helpful. It says, hi, guys. Just want to say how nice it's going how nice it is going into the season, knowing that we have our head coach and franchise quarterback set for the next 10 to 15 years. Hopefully, there's no discussion about who the next head coach or quarterback is for a long time. Go Broncos. Yes, indeed. And that actually reminds me of another story, Zach, that I wanted to get to tonight. There's multiple points to this story that I want to cover, but Justin Simmons, who was recently in town for a golf deal tied to his, like a golf tournament, charity golf tournament tied to his foundation, he talked to the Denver Post, provided some really interesting remarks. But on the subject of Bo Nix and Sean Payton kind of handicapping the outlook, like what does the future hold? Simmons said, quote, and this is to Sean Keller of the Denver Post, quote, when the head of the ship feels confident and is ready to lead and is projecting that, the rest of the guys follow suit. He's talking about Nix. And then he says, quote, it's just a marriage. And I think with Sean and Bo, the marriage right now is just flowing great. They both get each other. They both understand each other, and they're both in each other's corner. It makes for hopefully continued success year after year after year, close quote. So, Zach and Sam, it sounds like your hope that you have that Justin Simmons, who, by the way, Zach, is especially qualified to render a take on this, not only because he's an NFL veteran, but he went against Bo Nix and Sean Payton as an opponent last year, week 11, and the Falcons got utterly decimated by Bo Nix, 38-6.
It's kind of crazy that Simmons and Von Miller are still free agents in the year 2025, but here we are. And, Sam, thank you so much. Your point is very well taken. I like to add, they also have the ownership situation handled, the richest ownership group in the NFL. General manager George Payton is working very nicely. They have him under contract. And I would hope, Bo Nix, I could see 10, 15 years, but Sean Payton is 61. He'll be 62 in December. I don't know if he's going to coach till 77, like you're saying there, Sam. I think if the Broncos do win a Super Bowl in the next 3, 4, 5 years, he could call it quits and ride off on that note. But again, your point is well taken. They are set up in the most important areas for long-term success, not just a flash in the pan like last season.
Agreed. I want to get more into this Simmons article because he had quite a lot to say, too, about how he feels after, is there any bad blood, sour grapes, etc. But Sam, dude, thank you so much, brother.
Yeah.
And we got also the Papa Bears jumping in.
Thank you, David.
Great to see you, David. Hope you're still doing well and trending in the right direction. It's not an MHH podcast without you, brother. You know this. And did you just, can you hear me?
Yep.
Did you just see me do like a spinny thing, or was I on screen the whole time?
You were on screen.
Man, so weird. StreamYard's getting so buggy. It's pissing me off. Papa Bear, dude. Love you, big dog. Thank you. And he says, of course, good evening, Broncos country. Hashtag 13 and 4 plus, 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 plus.
Thank you, David. And yeah, I want to echo what Chad said earlier a few seconds ago. Hope you're doing well. Appreciate you tuning in with us. And like Chad said, it wouldn't be an MHH podcast without your presence.
Hopefully we'll get to see you this fall. If it's not in the cards, we understand, but hopefully we'll get to see you. Just a few hellos here. The first chat that we see on our first comment in the chat from David Youngkin saying, I'm glad Sean doesn't care what ESPN has to say. Indeed. Shiloh, what's up, buddy? Good to see you. Keep sending those fun videos on Instagram, dude. I love it. Steve saying, sign Courtland Sutton before training camp. Yeah, that was something I wrote about today. We'll come back to the Justin Simmons thing. On the Courtland Sutton situation, who was it at NFL.com? And that's right, Dan Parr. He said, quote, I know Sutton expressed optimism about his contract talks with the Broncos back in April, but here we are 3 months later, and there's nary a peep about a new deal getting done. This saga has played out for more than a year, with Sutton skipping voluntary OTAs in 2024 before reporting to mandatory practice and agreeing to a restructured pact that raised his salary last season. He did not skip any sessions this time around, which is why no one has been sounding the alarm. And then Zachy goes on to say that after leading the team as a receiver in back-to-back years, he needs to be rewarded. But is it that simple? Because, you got to analyze what he says, and I do so in the article. And it's a little bit more complicated because he's about to cross the dreaded 30-year-old milestone, right? And that's when things can really start slowing down, and especially a position that that relies as much as receiver does on explosion and speed, foot speed, and all that stuff. But what are your thoughts for, as Steve was saying, signing Courtland Sutton to an extension? Do you think it happens before training camp? Because I don't. I think it happens right around the first couple weeks of camp.
Yeah, I think it's going to happen before the season. I don't know it's going to happen before training camp. And to what you were saying about the NFL.com article, it seems like another national media member, Chad, that doesn't understand how the Broncos do business. George Payton likes to get extensions done on his timeline, either during the season, right after the season, not necessarily when a player wants it. And number two, it's not just Sutton that's up for a new deal. They're contemplating new contracts for Zach Allen, Nick Benito, John Franklin Myers. Also in the background, there's Malcolm Roach. There's other players except for Sutton that need prioritizing. But on offense, he is the biggest priority. It's an inevitability. I think they're going to give him, in a good faith gesture, reward Courtland Sutton for what he did. I just don't know that it happens in the next couple weeks.
We shall see. I'm not sure exactly either. The longer, look, I do. Am I sure? Am I going to bet the mortgage on it? No, but I'm very confident that Sutton does factor into the long term. And by long term, I just mean a new deal. He'll get his third contract with the Broncos. I don't think he'll play out the entirety of this season on being in a contract year. I do think it happens this summer. And as you mentioned, George Payton, just look at his track record of the timetable and the period on the calendar at which his extensions get done. It's all end of July on till the rest of the year, basically, but most of them happening in end of July and August. So we can't get too out over our skis agonizing over why it hasn't happened when we haven't even hit that window that we know, based on history, Payton likes to operate. Some additional hellos here. Let's see. Will, what's up, dude? Ed Keating in the hizzy. What's going on, pal? C. Chang saying, can't wait for the season to start. Love it, dude. We can't either. Kyle, let's see what Kyle has to say here. Jake Plummer came to a YMCA in Colorado Springs. My 7-year-old daughter got to play pickleball with him and got an autographed card as well. He's the man, dude. That's awesome. Jake is the man. I love Jake Plummer. You guys know, OGs of the show know he's my second favorite Bronco quarterback all time behind John Elway. Indeed, Jake Plummer actually eclipses Peyton Manning for me. Some people might roll their eyes, but it's the truth, man. I was a huge fan, Zach, of Jake Plummer. Patrick Wiltsey, what's up? Aloha, Priest and Scott. As long as there's improvement, who cares what the national knuckleheads say, Zach?
We certainly don't, Patrick. It's kind of our job and our duty to write about it and chronicle it, but we're keeping receipts at this point because we know what the national media narrative is about Sean Payton, about Bo Nix, about the Broncos. They could go undefeated, win the Super Bowl. They would still find something negative to say. That's why we have a t-shirt, MHHmerch.com. Let them hate. Still applies.
Totally. Absolutely. Big Earn, what's up, pal? Chad and Zach, go Broncos country. Only Bo Nix, 13-4-0 and 13-4 and beyond. I love it, dude. I love it. Lamar, what's up, pal? Hey, Phil, you're doing a great job. Enjoy your program. Go Broncos. Thank you, buddy. We got the Ronk in the house, too. Great to see Michael Ronquillo saying, good evening, Chad and Zach on the Mile High Huddle podcast. Go Bo Broncos. And when I say it's not an MHH pod without the Papa Bear, it certainly isn't either without the Ronk. So great to see you, buddy.
Thank you, Ronk.
We also have Roy. What's up, Roy? And I'm trying not to skip anybody, but, this time of year when it's this slow, we can afford to go through the chat and say hello to everybody. When things start popping off and everybody returns back to the campfire that we and you guys have kept blazing through the whole offseason, it'll be a little bit harder to do that. I think I said hello to everybody. So, Zach, back to some subjects at hand. We've talked about the ESPN thing, not urging, but expressing misgivings that the Broncos perhaps didn't do enough on the receiver front this offseason. I touched on the Simmons deal, but I want to get to a little bit more of this because I find it to be interesting. Now, it's really such a bummer when you think about Justin Simmons' situation and how bitter it must be for him to have toiled away on a Broncos squad that was just stuck in the doldrums of the NFL for the entirety of his 8 years. He has to face the indignity of being released. Then, of course, he lands on his feet. He gets a deal with the Falcons. But then to go on to see Zach, the Broncos win double-digit games for the first time since 2015, snap the playoff drought, make the playoffs. My heart goes out to guys like him. It's a little bit different. I'm not talking like I don't feel that way about Jerry Jeudy. Justin Simmons was a guy that, man, building block guy that went through all the depredations. Like he wandered the desert with the Broncos, doing everything that it took that he could to turn the ship around. And just when he was poised, Zach, to reap the benefits of those labors, boom, carpet gets pulled out. So I do feel bad for him in that sense.
Yeah, it would the same thing in flip side would apply to Garrett Bolles. That's why I was so happy when he finally did have a winning season last year, when he finally did make the playoffs, because he's now the Broncos' longest tenured player after Simmons was released, and he's gone through the same doldrums and the same issues and misery. So it sucks. That's how the NFL works. But I looked it up again. Simmons has made $70 million in his career, Chad. I think the tears will flow a little easier.
Oh, for sure. No doubt about it. Like, from a competitor perspective, though, I'm going to try to do, at the risk of screwing up the stream, I'm going to try and do a share screen. So hang tight with me, y'all. Hopefully this works out all right. But yeah, I'm not shedding tears for him. I'm really more setting the stage, because here's what he told. Again, this is a great article, Sean Keller of the Denver Post, on the subject of holding a grudge or there being any bad blood. Here's what he said, quote, "I mean, I can't speak for Sean Payton, but I have no bad blood with Sean, with anyone in the building. I loved my time there. I will always consider him a friend and a great coach." Goes on to say, quote, "I loved Sean. I love the Walton Penner Group and what they have going on. Business decisions happen, and sometimes there are casualties where both player and fans wish there wasn't, and there just is. And both sides could be better from it. And you see, Broncos had a successful year, and I'm so happy for them." And then, Zach, first of all, your thoughts on that, then I'll get to the next thing, the last thing on this subject I want to touch on.
Simmons is a good player, but he's an even better human being. I mean, he's a fantastic individual off the field, Chad. He understands it. He gets it. But I pose this question to anyone out there. Raise your hand if at any point last season you said to yourself, I really miss Justin Simmons. Brandon Jones isn't good enough, and the Broncos are really missing Simmons' presence. I didn't say that one time. So looking back on it with the benefit of hindsight, Chad, the Broncos made the right decision, a business decision, but the right decision for the personnel of their team, moving on from Simmons. And what happened after they cut him? It took until August, I think it was, for him to land that contract from the Falcons. I think he overplayed his value a little bit, and it came back to bite him.
I'll admit, I'm not even trying to be devil's advocate on what you just said, but the only time it really came to my mind, like FOMO missing Justin Simmons last year, was when PJ Locke started to kind of tumble a little bit. And we've since learned, like in other words, I couldn't help but wonder what a Simmons-Jones backfield would have looked like. But we've since learned, of course, that PJ Locke was going through some relative hell with his back and needed spinal fusion surgery, which he had in January. But I digress. All right, Zach, last thing on this subject. So, again, this is a guy who lived through all the post-Super Bowl 50 BS. He competed against the Broncos last year, so it's not that he watched them from afar and could answer a question such as, what was the difference last year? Like, why was the Broncos of 2024 able to do what the Broncos of 2023 couldn't under Sean Payton? And this was his answer, quote, "It's a really good question. I mean, even when I played against them and I'm watching a film, I just felt, and this is no shade at anyone, I feel when you have a team that is young and you can mold, they buy in a lot faster than guys that are older and have seen it and have done things differently for however long that is, right? And so people can take that how they're going to take it. It's not a shot at anyone, but the guys bought in," close quote. And I think that's for sure, Zach, when you excise the tumors, and in the case of the 2024 Broncos, before you got to the free agent period in the draft. I wouldn't necessarily call Jerry Jeudy, a cancerous growth. Okay, I'm not, but the Russell situation was, and it's not that Russ was cancerous. It's that the price they paid to get him, what they did to extend him, and the exceedingly low return on those investments. You had to cut it away, Zach.
Well, let's be honest. Russ was a little cancerous, Chad. I mean, the catchphrases, the amount of negative PR he brought the team, the amount of boneheaded plays he committed on the field, he was toxic to the team. And the very professional answer, again, Simmons is such a good human being, and he said it the polite way, but the reason why the Broncos were able to accomplish last year what they couldn't in 23 was because of Bo Nix. It's that they didn't have Russell Wilson, and they had Bo Nix at quarterback. That's the answer. And it's true.
Honestly, I agree. Honestly, the Broncos, they knew what they were doing when they cut Russell Wilson. They knew they were going to be staring down the barrel of $85 million, that it would trigger a collateral domino effect, right? First thing being, well, we got to find a new quarterback. We knew that would be coming no matter what. Plus, now we got to cut some guys. There are going to be some cap casualties, of which Simmons was one of them. Probably the most obvious cap casualty, the Jerry Jeudy thing. Does that trade happen if the Broncos aren't in that much of a salary cap pickle? I'm not sure. And then, of course, like Zach not bringing back core guys like Josie Jewell, a few other situations. But then the last thing is, okay, we got our quarterback, Bo Nix. We made our cap casualty moves, right? Judy's gone, Simmons gone, so on and so forth. Now we have to coach our rear ends off because we have this uber young, inexperienced roster. Yeah, we'll get them to buy in, but it takes more than that buy-in, I think. The coaches had to coach their arses off, and they did, and they relied on the youth of the roster. And that's an approach that, Zach, countless NFL teams have been forced to take in years. I mean, it's a common tale of woe in the NFL. And honestly, Zach, it blows up in their faces more often than not. It's the same teams that, then they end up with the first overall pick next year and this and that. And sometimes it creates a cycle of which it takes years and years for teams to dig out of. Not the Broncos. They avoided those pitfalls of leaning on the youth. I think mainly because, Zach, the stewardship of Sean Payton and his staff, and they really, really, really hit on their quarterback.
Yeah, I was thinking about the butterfly effect that's taken place with the benefit of hindsight, Chad. So if they didn't move on from Russell Wilson, you never got Bo Nix. If they didn't not re-sign Josie Jewell, you never would have got Greenlaw. If you didn't cut Simmons, you wouldn't have got Hufanga to pair, by the way, with Brandon Jones now. So with the benefit of hindsight, because like you mentioned, Sean Payton's so good at his job, George Payton's so good at his job, and Bo Nix caught on in year one because he's the real deal. That's how you're able to avoid rebuilding and how you're able to make the playoffs with a 10-7 record when no one gave you a chance. 5.5 win prediction comes to mind.
5.5, baby. Sean Payton chuckles. He's like, dude, I've never won fewer than 7 games. And they're going to hit me with 5.5. But again, in some sense, I sympathize with the morons who said, okay, 5.5, take the under, whatever. Because you looked at that roster and the tropes surrounding Bo Nix. You and I, and many of you in this room, didn't believe him, didn't buy into him. But people who aren't spending every single day of their lives on the Broncos beat, they did buy into it, and they did not expect Bo Nix to amount to anything more than like modest Mac Jones caliber returns for the Broncos. I sympathize with them to a degree, but hey, if you're in this business, you got to know better. It's Sean Payton, dude. It's Sean Payton. And Bo Nix, we knew that, dude, from before they even drafted him. We knew that there was a lot more to that situation than the draft Knicks were, willing to bring to the fore and talk about, not the least of which was his obvious and evident match with Sean Payton. I mean, the Drew Brees comparison, and it's still to this day so comical that the NFL allowed Bo Nix to land right in Sean Payton's lap. He didn't have to trade up. He didn't. Boom, Bo Nix. Yes, Zach. Meet and greet. It's this year. It's October 19th. That's week 7. That's the game at home versus the Giants. Going to be a gas.
You're a better man than I am, Chad. Here's why I have zero sympathy for those kind of people, because the same ones calling Bo Nix Mac Jones, they're still doing it today. I literally saw an article, it might have been by PFF, that did the ceiling and the floor for every quarterback, and the floor was Mac Jones. Bo Nix is already better than Mac Jones was for the Patriots as a starter. So they're still saying it. They're still hammering him. They're still putting him at number 19 overall, 24 overall, whatever. The same people won't let go of those narratives. So I say F them. I have no sympathy at all.
I hear you, dude. Look, at this point, I just rejoice. Like look, we showed up to work every day with the same relish and energy, whether the Broncos were a winner or if they were bottom of the AFC West, and we did. Like all those years on the beat, Zach, and then of course since we started doing the live pods, which was the Drew Lock rookie year, that's when we first started doing these live streams. But it sure does feel nice now, Zach, to cover a winning team, and especially for you, my dog. Like you toiled through, you didn't get to taste on the beat, you didn't get to experience the Peyton Manning years, and even the Tim Tebow whirlwind. So that was cool for you last year, Zach, to finally see, okay, not only is it a winning season, because like 2016, oh, whoop-de-whoop, yeah, it's a winning season because we finished above 500. If you're the Broncos, we've finished above 500, but you didn't make the playoffs. It's not a winning season. It's a losing season. And finally last year, got that monkey off their back.
I started covering the Broncos in August of that year after winning the Super Bowl, and I thought to myself, a winning season. Little did I know that was the best it was going to get for a decade. But you're right, Chad. We've shown up happy to cover the Broncos, win or lose. The only exception I can remember valid was 70-20. We were not showing up happy and smiling about that.
No, that was brutal. Zach says, Zach, I'm going to tweet you. Keep your eyes peeled, buddy. I'm sure he will, pal. Ron, Bo Nix was the only one I wanted here with the Broncos since day one. Yeah, dude. Look, I'm not a moron. I know that if the Broncos were holding the first or even the second overall pick, I don't know, and let's say they took Jaden Daniels or even Caleb, either one of those quarterbacks would also thrive in a Sean Payton scheme, because Sean Payton is quarterback friendly first and foremost. But from a philosophical perspective and a prototype, there was not a better fit for Payton in the draft than Bo Nix, and the Broncos got him. And I think the NFL is going to rue that for a long time. Phil, good to see you, brother. Thank you for being with us. I'm glad you found us. Says, good evening, Chad, Zach, and Deacon Scott. If there was a surprise trade taking place for the Broncos, would you guess it would be Zach, Courtland Sutton, or say Jonathan Cooper? Hashtag Buckham, MHH for life, Broncos for life. Your answer for Phil.
It's kind of a random set of choices there, at least with Cooper being included. I would say Sutton would be the more likely, because you have bodies that are high upside beneath him that you could count on if you get rid of him. If you trade Jonathan Cooper, you're left with like DeAndre Tillman, Q Robinson, Jonah Ellis. I don't think any of those guys yet, as good as they are right now, are ready to be full-time starters. But maybe Pat Bryant will be, maybe Devon Bailey would be. So if it had to come down to this, I'd say Courtland Sutton, Chad.
I mean, the obvious ones that's not being mentioned is John Franklin Myers, but that still, I think, is not going to happen unless, like, there's always the possibility, Zach, of some team coming in trying to replicate Philly and making the Broncos an offer for him that they can't refuse. Like, you can't rule it out as a possibility, slim though it would be. But the other aspect that could possibly push it closer to the surface would be if Savion Jones just dominates training camp and just crushes it in the preseason, one highlight reel type play after another. And then you're going, well, do we really need this JFM guy? But I don't expect that to happen. He's going to play out his contract year. I don't think the Broncos are going to be in a position to hold on to him, only because, as we all know and we've been talking about for 6 months, Zach Allen got to get paid. Nick Bonito got to get paid. Courtland Sutton also got to get paid.
Yeah, I think you drafted a few of these guys with the intention that if they pan out, you can trade the veteran incumbents ahead of them. So if Pat Bryant worked out, you could move on from Courtland Sutton. If Savion Jones worked out, you could move on from JFM or in a less likely scenario, not re-sign Zach Allen. So that's the goal, but they're not there yet because they haven't played one down of football. So this trade, I think, Shad, would be closer to midseason when they've had some games to evaluate. And maybe by then, one of these players is ready to take the next step to starter status.
We shall see. We shall see. And on the subject of Sutton still kind of being floated and asserted as a possible trade piece, I still don't see it happening. But if it were to happen, it would be one of those situations, Zach, where we would go, oh man, duh. Like there's been so much smoke over the last 4 years. I guess it really was fire after all. But again, I don't see the Broncos doing that and pulling the rug out from Bo Nix. They need him to continue his ascent. And when you look at that receiving core, there is only one proven guy. Say what you will about Courtland Sutton, how he's been post ACL injury, which he suffered in 2020, but he is the only guy who has produced consistently and has that experience. Otherwise, Zach, it's an extremely young room. I mean, the next most veteran guy is Trent Sherfield, who barely sees the field on offense throughout his career. You need that guy. I don't see him going anywhere.
That's a good point you brought up, and one we've made before countless times, is that Sean Payton's in the business right now of adding weapons for Bo Nix, not subtracting them. So again, if Pat Bryant steps up by midseason, or Vele, Franklin, Mims, whoever, and they feel confident in one of them, then you can maybe see Sutton moved on from. But I don't see it too likely, as do you, Chad.
All right, so real quick, thank you, Phil, brother. So good to see you. So another interesting story. This is an article from Keith Cummings on MHH, and this is NFL.com, former Pro Bowl running back himself, Maurice Jones-Drew, laid out his top 32 NFL running backs this year, and he listed Harvey as that guy for the Broncos amongst the 32. So on one hand, he's predicting Harvey is going to be that guy, the starter over, say, J.K. Dobbins. But interestingly enough, he listed Harvey at 24 out of 32, behind Zach, fellow rookies like Omarion Hampton at 13 and Ashton Genty at 17. And then this is what MJD said, quote, "There's a good chance J.K. Dobbins begins the season as Denver's RB1, but I expect Harvey to ultimately emerge as the lead dog. The rookie is a viable 3-down back who will quickly become a playmaker as both a rusher and pass catcher in Sean Payton's offense," close quote.
It's an inevitability. It's a matter of when and not if RJ Harvey takes over as the locked-in RB1 in a Sean Payton offense. So I agree with MJD there. The ranking is the ranking, Chad. I mean, he's a second-round pick, and the other guys were first-round picks, so not surprising. But it just shows you where the Broncos are considered among the NFL backfields right now, and how – just think last year with Javonte and the rest of them, Blake Watson, Tyler Bidet, they were even lower. So at least they rectified that, Chad. And by year's end, they could really have something going, provided that J.K. Dobbins stays healthy.
Like I mentioned, I think it might have been on the last pod, that realization, I mean, it was a light bulb moment. I did not realize that since Sean Payton arrived as head coach, the Broncos lead the NFL in running back receptions. You would never have guessed it because I think, Zach, they haven't done much with those league leading receptions. I think that changes this year, mostly because of RJ, but Dobbins will get a few licks in on that side as well. But Harvey's the guy that can do it all. And even though his pass protection, dude, Sean Payton rolls his eyes when you start bringing up running backs and pass protection. We watched him do it earlier this year at not the combine. I think Zach, it might have been right after the draft when he's like, look, he told the anecdote about Darren Sproles as his third down guy, right? And how, basically, hey, how often did you guys see Darren Sproles being asked to stay back? He was always in there on third down. How often did you see him being asked to hang back and take on Navarro Bowman or Patrick Willis on a blitz or something? He wasn't. He'd find different ways to block him, whether it's extra tight end or whatever. Harvey's going to be the guy, dude. And he can take a dump off, little pass, boom, boom. and take it a distance, man. Make some moves, explosive. He and Genty were the two most explosive backs in the FBS last year. And one of the things that really drew the Broncos to Harvey beyond that stuff, his rushing and running ability beyond that, Zach, was what they saw as his potential as a pass catcher. Like, he could end up being a ridiculous fantasy darling this year.
Well said. Yeah. And like you mentioned earlier with Bo Nix about perfect fit for Sean Payton, how could the NFL let the Broncos get Bo Nix? The same could apply for RJ Harvey. With his skill set, his dual threat abilities as a runner, as a pass catcher, his speed, his power, he's just a Sean Payton type of running back. And that's why I agree with MJD. By year's end, he will be RB1, if not much sooner.
And it's going to open up, dude. Like, again, like I was talking about earlier, the benefit of what Evan Ingram does for this offense and how it opens things up for others. That's also going to apply to the running back situation. Sure. Mark my words. Zach, I want to shift gears for a second here also, since, it's kind of a slow Thursday and we're just kind of going through, again, not a lot of news, but enough stories, so to speak, for us to keep the conversation going easily. But Garrett Bolles, Zach, he's looking for, hopefully, like, he just got re-extended. So this last extension that he got in the fall, that was his third contract with the Broncos. Rookie deal, then the first extension under Elway, and now this one. He's what, 32, I think, right? Like, and he wants to play out one more deal. You had the story, dude. Break that down.
Yeah, so not even 6 months after putting pen to paper on a 4-year, $82 million extension, as Chad says, it was his third with the Broncos, he wants to sign a new contract. He made the comments at minicamp last month to reporters. He said, hopefully I have one more in me, meaning down the road after he completes this deal, he wants to re-sign with the Broncos one more time when he'll be in his mid-30s to put a bow on his career and hang up his cleats as a Denver Bronco. But he also followed up that comment, Chad, by saying, listen, I'm just happy to be here. I'm grateful the Broncos brought me back. I'm grateful we're on the upswing now. So it's not anything they have to worry about now. He's under contract through 2028, but that's his intention. He thinks he has one more deal left in him.
We shall see, man. He's still young for his age in football years, so to speak, because even though he's originally from Utah, he's from Utah, he's got the mission thing, and he only played 1 year of Division I college football. So even though he's older in years, in football years, he's more like 28, 29, honestly. Like, in terms of wear and tear, he's a young 32. And even like his body type and how athletic and kind of fluid that he is as an athlete, that bodes well for him being able to, Zach, one day achieve that goal. But I want to switch gears one more time here. All offseason, Zach, we have, I wouldn't say lamented. We've kind of been laughing over Pro Football Focus's position rankings, right? And the latest comes in the form of PFF's John Costco. Get your membership card ready. Ranking the secondaries, the best secondaries, not the best, but like ranking all 32 secondaries. Who would you guess he had as the number one secondary in the NFL?
I think it was the Vikings, right?
No.
Texans.
It was Baltimore Ravens and Kansas City Chiefs, 1 and 2. Okay. At number 3, your humble Broncos. Zach, your thoughts?
I mean, I think they're the same outlet that had Sauce Gardner as the best corner in the NFL over PS2. So again, Chad, you mentioned PFF, you mentioned John Costco, and funny name aside, we tackled that a few months ago when he put out some ridiculous ranking about something else too. So it's trust the source, consider the source. PFF, let them hate.
Just for fun, here's what Costco actually wrote to kind of, I guess, justify his placement of the Broncos at number 3. Quote, a unit that could contend for the league's top spot by year's end. The Broncos returned Defensive Player of the Year, Pat Surtain II, and selected Zadeh Barron, PFF's number 11 overall player in the class, and its number 2 cornerback at number 20 in the NFL draft. The safety spot opposite Brandon Jones remains a question mark, but the depth and strength of Denver's cornerbacks should give this unit a high floor in 2025, close quote. And I love this because, Trickle's been the one writing up these PFF stories. And I'm going to quote him. This was the very next paragraph after citing Costco. Because Eric writes, quote, "Did Costco forget that the Broncos added Talanoa Hufanga?" It sounds like he honestly forgot that, Zach, or overlooked it.
Overlooked it probably to fit his own narrative. And also, Chad, last year, Pro Football Focus had Brandon Jones ranked as the number 2 overall safety in the NFL, I think it was, or 3rd overall safety. He was
By
top
grade.
3. Top 3 for sure. Yeah, by grade. So how do you not? The Depoy, you have Barron who graded highly, you have Brandon Jones who graded highly, you forgot about Hufanga, whatever. How do you not consider them the best secondary? But it's PFF for you.
It's a joke, and we'll laugh. This time of year, I could use the laugh. Although I discovered this one meme on Instagram yesterday, and I've probably watched it 100 times. It's a meme video reel thing, dude. I'll send it to you, Zach. It's the funniest thing I've ever seen. I don't even want to talk any more about it because I'll start laughing, but it involves a dude getting blasted in the shin with a golf club when he's trying to interview this kid. And it's the funniest thing you've ever seen in your life, but it's not safe for work. So I can't show it to you guys. Zach, let me shift gears. Do you remember that dude when we were at CBS Sports, Jimmy Kaler, that kind of came in? Didn't he come in like the 11th hour, like right before we left CBS?
That doesn't ring a bell.
You don't remember Jimmy Kaler? He's like a former punter or something.
Mm-mm.
Be that as it may, it's neither here nor there. He's now with Sportsline, which is a CBS property.
Jimmy Kaler.
And Kaler instead of Taylor, right?
Yeah.
And he's portrayed as Sportsline's quote expert handicapper, and he's going through laying out his over under for the AFC West teams. He had the Chiefs at 10.5. Both the Chargers and Broncos at 9.5, the Raiders at 7.5. And then here's what he said about the Broncos. Quote, "The Broncos were one of the biggest surprises in the NFL in 2024. By the way, he's telling everybody take the over. This is not betting advice. Zach and I, we don't do that. I'm just telling you what this guy said. Broncos were one of the biggest surprises in the NFL in 24. Behind a stout defense and a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix, Denver managed to win 10 games. Sean Payton is one of the most successful head coaches of his generation, and the Broncos made a handful of offseason moves that bolstered their roster even more. This is a team that should have a top 5 defense and an above-average offense. I currently have the Broncos projected to finish with 10 wins for the second straight season, but they do have a couple of swing games that could push that total even higher," close quote. So he's saying, Zach, take the over.
Yeah, this is not betting advice, but if I were a betting man, I would take the over on 9.5 easily. I mean, they won 10 last year. I never understand this, Chad. Like with the 5.5 for Sean Payton when he never won below 7 in a season. Yeah, smash the over. The Broncos could win 11, 12, maybe even 13, like David says.
Also, and guys, consider this, what are we at? We're at 43 minutes. Consider this the kind of 2-minute warning. Any burning topics, questions, supers, get them in the chat. We'll get to it. But Zach, shifting gears a couple more times before we dip out of here. There's 2 more stories I want to get to here. You had the article for us a couple days ago. I found it to be a great article and a very interesting comments by Marvin Mims Jr., who recently said in an appearance on, if I can get rid of the video, on Sirius XM's NFL radio, he said this, did Marvin Mims, quote, "You can really feel that the times are changing for us. People always like to say a win now mode with the way things went last year. We were projected to be last in the league last year and wound up making the wild card. Guys that were here last year, they believe. The guys that are coming in, they want to make an impact too. I think everyone's hungry," close quote. Dude, I love hearing that about the hunger and people, they believe, but just him saying that the times are a-changing, I'm like, hey, dude, Bob Dylan, this is the young modern Bob Dylan. Go pick up your acoustic guitar, hit Upper East Side Manhattan and sing those revolutionary ballads, dude. Let's go. Broncos, times are a-changing.
Man, Mims has gone from someone that I was kind of wavy about when he was drafted. He's one of my favorite players on the team now, Chad, based on how he handled himself in the media, what he does on the field. But basically, he's saying, as I wrote in the article, these are not the same old Broncos you grew to hate on Sundays over the course of the last decade. These are a sustainable, successful, relevant, legitimate franchise that's going to make noise in the playoffs and maybe even a deep run. He's saying that the returning players from last season now know what it takes to get to the postseason. And he mentioned Hufanga, whatever, and Greenlaw as players. They both made Super Bowls with the 49ers, experienced veterans. They know what it takes also. They've been there. They've done that. And when you put those things together, that's why you got the skyrocketing stock that you do now.
Indeed. Well said, bro. Okay, a couple other things here. So we found out, I want to say Tuesday, that Patrick Surtain has been nominated for Best NFL Player of 2025 ESPY Award, and fans are stoked, getting their hopes up. But Zach, when you actually look into the history of the award and you see that I think it was either 93 or 94 is when it began, not one single defensive player has ever won the ESPY for Best NFL Player. I'm advising fans, Broncos fans, don't get your hopes up on Pat Surtain bringing home an ESPY, which is also relatively meaningless in the grand scheme of things. Hang your hat on the fact that he's the reigning depoy and could become one of 3 or 4 players ever to repeat back-to-back.
Yeah, isn't Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, they're up for that award as well? I think
Yep.
so. I would presume one of them is going to win it over PS2. But like Chad said, it's kind of I don't know.
And Saquon's the other one.
Yeah, it's kind of an unofficial, informal award. We all know how good PS2 is. He's under contract for the future as well, so it's all good.
All right, last story, and then we'll take one more look at the chat before we dip. But Bill Barnwell, who is a great writer, he's very well respected in this field for good reason at ESPN. You remember, guys, last season, though, about this time, he ranked the Broncos skill position, so tight end, receiver, running back. They're as one group, he ranked the Broncos as the 30th best in the NFL. So only 2 teams did he have worse than the Broncos last year. Cut to 2025 on the heels of the 10-win season. What changed? Well, Bill Barnwell now ranks the Broncos skill positions at number 23 overall. So they rose 7 spots, which is encouraging. But at the same time, Zach, that's still basically a bottom 10 ranking. And here's what he said, quote, Sean Payton is excited about his new charges in Denver, but unless R.J. Harvey, Evan Ingram, and Pat Bryant become the new Alvin Kamara, Jimmy Graham, and Michael Thomas overnight, I might chalk that up to idle spring and summer optimism. I wouldn't be surprised if one of those guys breaks out and lives up to lofty expectations, but asking everybody on the roster to have a 95th percentile season versus their prior production or draft status just by virtue of playing under Payton is a tall order, close quote. Your thoughts?
Okay. Another national media member's opinion and nothing really more. And we wouldn't even be talking about this if it wasn't July 10th right now. So I guess it's all projection. It's all theory right now. It's all hypothetical. And we'll see what happens in the fall. Like I wrote in my story earlier today with the wide receiver thing. We'll see if this narrative about the Broncos skill position and the receiver group being so bad, we'll see if this continues when the Bullets start flying in September.
Ralph, what's up, bro? Bo Nix, MVP. How are my boys tonight? We're great, brother. How are you? Chad, Zach looks taller than you told me. I don't know. Did I tell you he was short? I don't know. I'm trying to think back, Ralph came out to the game or to the Bridge of the Gap show that we had a couple weeks ago in Denver. Oh, I'm taller than he thought. Yeah. I remember the conversation now. You'll find out for yourself, Ralph, when we see you in October. It's going to be a gas. Great to see you tonight, bro. The Ronk, great show tonight, Chad and Zach. Thank you, brother. Really appreciate you. Real quick, I want to give some love to our boy here, Todd Ostendorf, saying the Broncos spend a 3rd-round pick on Pat Bryant. Right or wrong, in the eyes of the media, doesn't matter. What does is that Sean Payton believes he saw a player that has traits, Zach, similar to Michael Thomas, a.k.a. the slant god.
And he also has Marvin Mims, who was voted by ESPN, by the way, or ranked whatever, as the
Number
best
one.
gadget player in the NFL. The same company that Barnwell works for. Marvin Mims qualifies for that. They also have Evan Ingram. They also have Vele, who is reliable. Dobbins, Harvey in the backfield. So I get what Barnwell was saying, but even if they hit on 2 out of the 3 and Pat Bryant takes a little longer, they're still going to be in much better shape than they were last season.
Says, I hope Bryant's career can mimic what Thomas did in his first 4 years and not like his last 3 years. Amen to that, brother. Hey, thank you, Big Earn. Appreciate the props, my friend. And then we also have Jason Bonney jumping in to say, Mike Kliss said it again today on 104.3 The Fan in Denver. Quote, Sutton has made it clear he's not playing for $14 million, close quote. There's a short video on YouTube titled, Why Hasn't Zadeh Barron Signed Yet? It's 9 minutes, and he says it there. Okay, cool. Check it out, buddy. I mean, Jason's been one of the guys, I think, secretly pining for us to write the article citing what Mike Kliss has said about, there's no way he's going to play. Maybe we're going to have to get around to that, dude, here soon. We'll give you our props if we do, Jason. Ronk, thank you, bro. Says Mr. Marvin Mims is the 4th player in NFL history to make the Pro Bowl in his first 3 years, joining. Oh, so is this a prediction? So he'll be the first NFL player in NFL history to make the Pro Bowl in his first 3 years, which would then join Aaron Donald, Barry Sanders, and Micah Parsons. Because he's in year 3, right? So I think that's what he's saying, Zach.
Be some pretty good company for Marvin. I will say that. Appreciate you, Ron.
All right, guys, we got a few messages for you that we're going to dip out. Don't leave yet.
Can't believe it's been 51 minutes already. You guys make this the best podcast in the entire world. If you're not doing so already, please follow us on X at the MHH Pod. You can follow the main account on X at Mile High Huddle, Chad at Chad and Jensen, myself at Kelberman NFL, and don't forget about Scott, our producer, at Scout Kennedy. If you guys want some merch like we're rocking each and every single podcast, check out MHHmerch.com. Get you some. If you haven't done so yet, drop us a like at Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. You can find us on Instagram at Mile_High_Huddle. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you're leaving your football priest a 5-star review for a chance to win some merch each and every single month. But if anything, y'all, please, very important as always that you subscribe, you like, you share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
A mile high salute and a special shout out to the great Super Chat superstars and supporters helping us keep the lights on this point in the offseason with their hard-earned money. We do not take it lightly. Thank you, Sam. Such a generous super chat. Love you, brother. The Papa Bear every single night. The Ronk, Phil, Ralph, and of course, at the 11th hour here, our buddy Jason Bonney, MHH. Thanks for the hard work, guys. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate you. And much love and respect to every one of you within the sound of my voice right now. Have a great weekend, guys. Zach and I are off till Sunday night, and we'll see what kind of stories, kick up between now and then. But we're 6 days away from the rookies reporting, so we're getting closer, guys. We're getting closer.
Almost there. Hang in there. We'll see you Sunday. Have a great weekend. Take care. And as always, go Broncos.